Hey folks, David Stewart here. I bought a PSVR, here it is, in 2022. Why am I buying the PSVR in 2022? It's been out for a couple of years now. It has to do with how I time buying tech, and that's really what I want to use this to enter into, is how I time when I buy consoles and I buy gaming tech, especially so that I don't break the bank. I have a large collection of gaming equipment, and haven't spent all my money on it. It's not like I'm super rich and can just buy as much gaming tech as I want, but the time that I choose to buy the gaming tech helps me save a lot of money, and that is definitely the case with the PSVR. I bought this on eBay used for $90, and it wasn't just the headset, it was also the processor, the camera, an adapter for the PS5, and PlayStation Move controllers. And Sony sells that same package for $350. You can buy it on their website. So $90 used, and this is very much lightly used. I presume somebody bought it for the gimmick and enjoyed it for a while and then put it away and didn't play it, so they sold it on eBay. But even that $350 package is a really good deal compared to when this first came out. When it first came out, it was $499, and this is the Model 2, which is a little bit of an upgrade over the Model 1 as far as some convenience factors. Same specs, but a little bit better than the Model 1, let's say. So $500 didn't include the controllers, and that $350 version includes the controllers and a game. I think Iron Man VR is like the package that they sell now. So $100 for that is a really good deal, and $350 is itself a good deal over $500. So I like to say that there's two good times to buy a console or buy gaming tech. Number one is right when it comes out, especially with a console. If you buy a console right when it comes out, you get to enjoy the entire lifespan of the hardware. All the hype that comes with it, all the new software that comes out, you get to enjoy all of that for the entire duration of its lifespan. New updates. There's a tacit message when you buy a console that for a certain amount of time, software is going to be released for that hardware that works well and appropriately on it. So when you buy a new Nintendo Switch, if you bought it in 2017 when it came out, you basically knew that for at least 5 years, 4 or 5 years, they were going to be releasing new software that you could buy and play on your Nintendo Switch, and it would run well. So if you bought it right when it came out, even though there weren't a lot of games for the Nintendo Switch when it launched, there was only a couple, as is the case with most consoles, you know that lots of them are going to be coming out in the future. So that's the first time to buy it. The other time is not necessarily when it is completely outdated, when it becomes a retro console, but as it's on its way out, as it's fading away, as it's towards the end of its life cycle as a marketable piece of hardware, maybe when the next one's on the horizon. Like PSVR 2 has already been announced, and it'll probably come next year at some point, maybe late in 2023. The reason that I bought this here is that it's in that waning portion, so I could get a deal on it. I could pay less for it if I buy it used because there's lots of them on the market, and lots of supply, not a lot of demand. People who wanted the PSVR for the most part already bought one. And you have the option, if you didn't want to buy a used one, you could buy a new one and still get a deal on the hardware. And this is the strategy that I used to buy a lot of the console hardware that I have. I bought the Wii U more or less this way. I bought the PlayStation Vita this way. Even the Nintendo 3DS, I bought towards the end of the life cycle of the hardware because I could get new hardware cheaper. So I bought all those things new, but I bought them cheaper, much cheaper than when they first came out. And when you buy them, they have a big software catalog. And this is the next thing, besides buying cheap hardware, you have a lot of software available and a lot of it is cheap. So there were tons of PSVR games on clearance at a bunch of different stores. Brand new in the box, factory sealed, $5, $10 for games that were $60 on release. Well, that's a great opportunity because when you buy a console, you're not just buying a thing. You're not just buying this thing that goes on your head. You're buying access to games. You're buying access to software. That's why it's good to buy the console right when it comes out because you know you're going to have access to software that's going to run well on the console for a number of years. You can be sure that you don't have to buy new hardware for a while. So it's kind of the opposite when you're getting it towards the end. You already have all the software, you can see what's available for it, and it's cheap because the supply of the physical copies, retailers are trying to get rid of their extra physical copies that they couldn't sell because that's kind of inevitable. And then there's also lots of sales that run on digital stores, particularly for older games. So if you wanted to buy, like I bought Batman Arkham VR, which I haven't even played, but I bought it for like $5. $5, and if I get a couple hours of play out of it, then it's totally worth the $5 to me. Same thing for, bought like Doom VFR for like $5. I bought Skyrim VR for I think $10 new in the package, right? And boy, that's a lot of fun. Now, I don't want to like review the headset right here, but I will say that I feel like I definitely got my money's worth out of it, and there's a lot more things that I want to do and experience with it. It's one of the most comfortable VR headsets that I've actually worn. I've tried, all the Oculus variants and stuff like that, the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift, the original one. Most of those kind of strap onto your face with like, and it's kind of this thing pressing. This is opposite. It's like the eye part hangs over your eyes. So it's a lot more comfortable to wear for a long time. You can even wear it with glasses very comfortably if you want to wear eyeglasses when you play. So overall, definitely it was worth it. And I had a lot of software that had VR modes in it. So this was another thing. Like I already had Star Wars Squadrons sitting in my library. So when I played that with VR, boy, that was a different kind of experience. In fact, it was the only VR game that I got actually like nauseated from playing. Because even in the first mission, you're like flying around this asteroid thing, and your perception of where the ceiling and the floor are is in constant flux. It becomes very disorienting after a while. I don't think I'm cut out to be a starfighter pilot, but really cheap software catalog. So yeah, the hardware's cheap and the software's cheap when you get it on the backslide of it, because of the way supply and demand works. So that's a great time to buy hardware. When I bought the PS Vita, it was kind of on the decline of the PS Vita. Retailers were looking to unload their PS Vitas. Unfortunately, I didn't get a Vita TV. They were selling those for like $40 at GameStop. What a deal that would have been. But you could get it for cheap, and the software is cheap. You can buy use games for an inexpensive amount. You can hack your Vita and get a lot of money out of it. Now, if you wait a really long time till it's completely defunct, you can possibly get a deal, or the price can go up. So I know people are kind of excited to get the backwards compatible PS3s. So these were the original launch model PS3s that could play the entire catalog of PS2 games. I'm not going to say flawlessly. There's like some individual parts and games that like maybe just slightly don't work on the PS3 hardware. But yeah, we'll call it fully backward compatible PS3. You could play PS1, PS2, PlayStation 3 games. The fatty model with the four USB ports in there. So I have one of those, and I bought it again, years ago, but I bought it for less than $100, and it had a big stack of games with it and controllers and stuff, because somebody had this sitting around, and they wanted a PS4, they didn't want the PS3, and they just wanted to unload it. And this was something, this pattern of this hardware cycle I noticed way back in the 90s. Because in the 90s, PlayStation 1 came out, and that was the thing everybody wanted to buy, was this PlayStation 1. And all of a sudden, the Super Nintendo games, everybody was selling their systems and games to used stores, or selling them to each other, basically for a song and a dance, just to try to get money to maybe buy one new PlayStation 1 game, because, the Super Nintendo was like passe. Well, at that point, I was kind of on the PC side as far as gaming. Like, I was doing more of the new games on a personal computer, either Windows PC or a Mac, depending on the game or, what computer I had available. So I kept my Super Nintendo around, and I noticed at Blockbuster, I could buy Super Nintendo games for like $5. So I bought a bunch of used Super Nintendo games, and that's actually when I really got into RPGs on the Super Nintendo, like the classic JRPGs like Final Fantasy III, which is actually Final Fantasy VI. I got those, as they were on sale at Blockbuster Video, because they were liquidating their Super Nintendo stash to put in PlayStation games. So you could buy those on the cheap Basically, before the Nintendo 64 came out, even you could buy your Super Nintendo games really cheap. So I noticed that people were just, as soon as the new thing was out, the old thing was like, don't touch it, it's garbage. And I realized playing those cheap games, I'm like, oh yeah, $5. I found this great game called Arcana, which I've recommended to people on the channel. Great JRPG dungeon crawler game, really a lot of fun. I bought it for like $5 at a Blockbuster Video. It was on, they were selling their old games. And this game hooked me. It was like this really, really fun game. And I realized that as I went and played PlayStation 1 games, that they weren't necessarily any more fun. Yeah, it's exciting. It was exciting at the time to have 3D graphics. But these newer games weren't more fun than the Super Nintendo games. So if you're looking at how much fun can you get for your dollar, if you buy the stuff that is just a little bit old that everybody's trying to get rid of, that's where the money is. The thing is, if you wait too long, it becomes like a retro thing. And there's certain retro games that even now have held their value for like 35 years or gone up. I saw a friend on Twitter bought Castlevania Bloodlines, which is a great Castlevania game for the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive. And I bought it used during this time period for like $15. Well, it was new. When it was new, it was $60, and buying it used now is like $100. So it's actually like held its value with inflation really, really well. So, for a while it was really cheap because it was just a Genesis game. But once it gets into the territory of people are looking to find and collect retro games, then the value can go up. So like that backwards compatible PS3, the value of that is kind of go up. I bought mine when it was really cheap, so I got a good deal on it because people are like, I don't want the PS3 anymore. I want like buy PS4. I want to buy the new thing. And so that's a great opportunity to buy that stuff. So if you wait till things are waning, but maybe they're not completely gone yet, you can still buy new hardware. You have the option of buying the new hardware. And all the software is already out. You could pick and choose the best software, and you could probably get it on clearance for very cheap. If you bought a PlayStation 4 or you decided to buy PlayStation 4 games, and I did this for a lot of games in like 2018 or 19, you can buy a bunch of classic games. Not classic, but like, important games for the PS4, very popular games, for just, a song and a dance for a couple dollars. I have physical copies of a bunch of games. People are like, have you played this game? I'm like, yeah, I have a physical copy. I bought for $5, or no, I haven't played it. I have a new sealed physical copy I bought for $5. And that's cool. It's cool that it's available if you want new stuff, because you don't know if it's used, if it's been treated correctly. And the thing is, as things become more retro, you don't know their history as well. There's a lot of NES decks around, a lot of them. And there's a lot that are broken. So when you go buy a used NES deck, you don't know if that's been in somebody's attic, all the caps are popped. You don't know the history of that. But if you buy something, towards the end of the cycle, it's either lightly used, it's been used in someone's living room, not sitting in their attic. So you know that it's been used in a normal fashion if you buy it used, which is a good deal. Or you can buy new hardware and it's still save quite a bit of money. But once a certain amount of time passes, like you buy a PS3 backwards compatible now, you probably don't know where it's been. It might have been sitting in someone's attic. You don't know how it's been treated or whether it's going to die on you or anything like that. If you bought one that maybe was used like I did back a bunch of years ago, then it's basically been used in a normal fashion and someone is getting rid of it to buy their next console, whatever that happened to be. So yeah, I bought a PSVR in 2022. I would say it's a pretty good deal. I've enjoyed playing with it, and my family's enjoyed messing around with it and doing stuff with it. And so now I think it's actually probably a pretty good time to buy this. Now they've announced the PSVR 2, so obviously people are like, well, I'll just wait for the PSVR 2. But I will say this about the PSVR 2. I could see this one going up in value next year. Kind of like how the PlayStation 4 was still selling at like retail values after the PS5 came out because people couldn't get a PS5. And there was lots of PS4s sitting around that had already been manufactured. And people wanted a gaming system, so they were still buying PlayStation 4s. Well, I think it might be the same thing with this one, is that next year, first of all, we're going to have a long time before the PSVR 2 comes out, which means they'll still be releasing new software for this for a while. They'll still be updating it. It's still going to be supported into next year. When the PSVR 2 comes out, a lot of people won't be able to get one because it's brand new. We've had people have had problems getting PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X consoles. So because of the microchip shortage and all the problems with supply chain with the pandemic. So you may have problems getting the new hardware when it comes out next year. And then people might look, well, I was really looking forward to having VR on my PlayStation 5. Maybe I can get just a PSVR, an original one, even though it's not as high resolution. It's got an LCD in it instead of an OLED, and it's just not as good as the new one. But it's still very functional, so it may be more attractive. You might see a little bump in the price for the used stuff, and you may see those $350 new packages sell out. You still can't get them. You can't get them at like Best Buy at this point, but you could get them direct from Sony. You may suddenly see that those are hard to get. So yeah, this is a good time, in my opinion, to buy one of these, or really to buy any tech as it's on the way out. I think now's a really good time to buy a Nintendo Switch if you haven't bought one. You can buy a used one very cheaply, maybe a lightly used one. Although I would say I caution the Nintendo Switch, because my Nintendo Switch, which is original, and I bought it when it came out, or it was actually a Christmas present for my mom and my wife. And really, my son ended up being the one who used it. The battery on it's starting to die. It doesn't hold a charge like it used to. But you could buy a new one, and might be able to find a deal on a new one, especially as this kind of fades out, especially once Nintendo announces a new console. And then you have this huge catalog of games, and kind of like the PS Vita, you have hacking guides that people have been working on hacking and doing homebrew software with it for several years, and so you might have the ability to hack and jailbreak your system. Buying a PS3 now, it's really easy to jailbreak a PS3, and that's probably a good idea because it's already an end-of-life console. PS4, jailbreaking it now is probably no big deal because it's kind of an end-of-life console. These things, or same thing, hacking a 3DS. You're not going to really feel bad about hacking it because you're not going to miss out. Somehow you can't use the network features. They're already shutting off the network features, so just hack it and enjoy playing emulators and homebrew software on your 3DS or whatever hardware you buy. So same thing when you buy kind of this older hardware. So yeah, as it's on the decline, that's when you're going to get the most value for your money, because you can buy cheap software, you can buy cheap hardware, and you don't have the bump from retro that happens afterwards, where people are looking to buy sealed stuff or looking to buy hard to find old pieces of software, and you don't know where the hardware may have been as time goes forward. So that's it. Let me know what you think about it down below. I've had a lot of fun with this. My computer it's barely powerful. It's like a GTX 970, barely powerful enough to run PC VR stuff. I've done it before. It's like I really, might want to get into it in a deeper fashion, but that's a big expense. I wonder if now might be the time to buy like the old Oculus stuff as it's becoming a little bit deprecated. Now might be a good time to go into the PC side as well. But anyway, leave me your thoughts down below on that, and what you think about buying hardware and how you like to time buying hardware, and maybe what you think about VR. My initial impressions with VR is, yes, it's a gimmick. Every new thing that comes out with gaming is a gimmick. Motion controls on the Wii were a gimmick. The touchpad on the Wii U is a gimmick. The portability of the Nintendo Switch is a gimmick. The PlayStation Move is a gimmick. The Wonder Book was a gimmick. Light guns were a gimmick, right? Gaming is full of gimmicks. VR is no exception. A lot of VR games that I've played are basically traditional games with a VR perspective that maybe plays around or enhances with it. But I've seen a lot of stuff that it's been really good. I've played a lot of really good games like Moss so far on it that's very different from what VR was presented as on the PC side, which is almost always like first-person, full immersion games. This is really just a way of presenting unique ways to physically look at an environment to navigate a third-person game. That's Moss. So there's a lot of unique software that's out here for this. It's not just a gimmick. It starts with a gimmick, but the gimmick allows you to create a unique experience, or like a unique presentation of a classic set of gaming mechanics. And really, I think it's been pretty fun. And I think the PlayStation side, because it has some of those exclusives, might be worth it, especially if you can get it cheap. And that's my feeling about it right now. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great, great day. Don't forget the live stream is Saturdays at 1 Pacific, 3 Central. I'm going to stop those for a little while in June because I'll be moving. But we'll probably start them back up again at Maybe, I don't know, maybe 1 Central. Maybe still 3 Central. We'll see. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next time.